We're back in Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy. They've all qualified for the debate on Wednesday night here on NewsNation. It's the former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie who's at risk of not making it on the stage, joined by the former presidential candidate and former governor of Minnesota, Tim Pawlenty. Governor, it's good to see you. And what would a Chris Christie being on stage versus not being on stage, do you think, do to the dynamic Wednesday night, if anything?
Well, he's arguably the most effective and most entertaining debater on the stage if he gets there. Not to say that the others aren't very capable as well, but he certainly adds a spark to the debate. Unfortunately, that hasn't translated into polling results for him at any high level so far.
Yeah, his spark would be in part that he'll go after former President Trump and do it by name and do it specifically, talk about the court cases, all the rest. The other candidates don't do it that way. They don't have that type of a style. Can you speak a little bit to some of the polling? We had it out from NewsNation and Decision Desk HQ today, but we've seen in other polls as well about the inevitability of another Trump nomination. Are we there yet, or can he be beaten? How do you look at these numbers?
Yeah, I think the NewsNation Decision Desk polling that you referenced before the break sort of confirms and affirms what we, I think, have come to conclude, which is absent a political existential event, Trump is highly likely to be the nominee, and the rest of the remaining candidates are sort of vying for being the default candidate in case Trump implodes between now and next spring. And while that's possible, even if he does, it's not clear that a bunch of folks who currently support him would abandon him. But I think everybody's playing for sort of that default choice because Trump looks like he's going to be the nominee.
And how do you feel about that in terms of a matchup with President Biden? I know you haven't been a big Trump guy, but if he's the nominee of the party, how would you feel about it?
Well, I used to tell folks that, you can't nominate Trump for a variety of reasons, one of which is he can't win a general election. But the recent polling has shown me to be wrong and other people wrong in that regard.
But do you think he actually would win?
It appears like he'd be very close to winning, and he's ahead in most of the swing states. So I have to take back my earlier words from some months ago and say it's possible that Trump could win a general election.
But would you be okay with it still as a Republican? Someone's been in the party for this long. Would you be comfortable supporting him as the nominee of your party if it comes to that?
I've made my views regarding former President Trump clear, which is I don't think he's well suited for the office of the presidency of the United States, and I surely hope my party finds somebody else to be the nominee. But unfortunately, from my standpoint, looks like he is going to be the nominee.
Right. And if you had to pick one that's going to be, as you say, they may be long shots, I don't know. There's still an argument, we've talked about it on this show, to be made that, once you get through Iowa and New Hampshire, that there might be a short window for someone, Nikki Haley, perhaps DeSantis, to make a run at Trump before Super Tuesday if they can consolidate the field. If that were to happen, who would you pick from the rest of the field?
Well, I think the strongest candidate remaining for that purpose probably is Nikki Haley. But keep in mind, as other candidates may drop out, it's not clear that that support within the party goes to anybody other than Trump. For example, if Governor DeSantis were to drop out, disproportionately, his followers would likely go to Trump. The only person that who could drop out and add more support to Chris Christie would probably be Nikki Haley, and vice versa. If Vivek drops out,
but that's not enough, right?
Going to Trump.
Yeah, that's not enough numbers-wise. If Christie's at 2%, if he, that's not enough.
And by the way, if somebody doesn't make it, get any momentum going before Super Tuesday, and they kind of stumble through the first three primaries, history pretty much shows they're toast.
What do you think, as a final question, of the way this has all been handled by the RNC? I think there's been some pressure to try to consolidate the field, as you look at the numbers there, to have a one-on-one matchup. I thought it was interesting when Doug Burgum dropped out of the race today. He put a statement out talking about the RNC, and it said the clubhouse debate requirements nationalizing the primary process and taking the power of democracy away from the engaged, thoughtful citizens of Iowa and New Hampshire. And, he was critical in this statement of the RNC, saying the mission is to win elections, not their mission to reduce competition and restrict fresh ideas by narrowing the field months before the caucuses or the New Hampshire primary. Does he have a point there? Or?
I have high regard for Governor Burgum, but when the bar is set at 6% nationally in at least one of the so-called early or exempted states, that's a low bar. If you can't make that, that tells you all you need to know in terms of this stage of the race, fourth debate. I respectfully disagree. I think if you can't clear off 6% threshold in polling, time to fold the tent.
I think the other person who may have said that is Chris Christie, and he might have a decision to make tonight on that regard, or perhaps he gets on stage. We'll find. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.